This is a nursery tale by Vladimir Nabokov. 1. Fantasy, the flutter, the rapture of fantasy. Erwin knew these things well. In a tram, he would always sit on the right-hand side so as to be nearer the sidewalk. Twice daily, from the tram he took to the office and back, Erwin looked out of the window and collected his harem. Happy, happy Erwin, to dwell in such a convenient, such a fairy-tale German town. He covered one sidewalk in the morning on his way to work, and the other in the late afternoon on his way home. First one, then the other was bathed in voluptuous sunlight, for the sun also went and returned. We should bear in mind that Erwin was so morbidly shy that only once in his life, taunted by rascally comrades, he had accosted a woman, and she had said quietly, "You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Leave me alone." Thereafter, he avoided conversation with strange young ladies. In compensation, separated from the street by a window pane, clutching to his ribs a black briefcase, wearing scuffed trousers with a pinstripe, and stretching one leg under the opposite seat, if unoccupied, Erwin looked boldly and freely at passing girls, and then would suddenly bite his nether lip. This signified the capture of a new concubine, whereupon he would set her aside, as it were, and his swift gaze, jumping like a compass needle, was already seeking out the next one. Those beauties were far from him, and therefore the sweetness of free choice could not be affected by sullen timidity. If, however, a girl happened to sit down across from him, a certain twinge told him that she was pretty. He would retract his leg from under her seat with all the signs of a gruffness quite uncharacteristic of his young age, and could not bring himself to take stock of her. The bones of his forehead, right here over the eyebrows, ached from shyness, as if an iron helmet were restricting his temples and preventing him from raising his eyes, and what a relief it was when she got up and went toward the exit. Then, feigning casual abstraction, he looked. Shameless Erwin did look, following her receding back, swallowing whole her adorable nape and silk-hosed calves, and thus, after all, would he add her to his fabulous harem. The leg would again be stretched, again the bright sidewalk would flow past the window, and again his thin, pale nose, with a noticeable depression at the tip, directed streetward. Erwin would accumulate his slave girls. And this is fantasy, the flutter, the rapture of fantasy. One Saturday, on a frivolous evening in May, Erwin was sitting at a sidewalk table. He watched the tripping throng of the avenue, now and then biting his lip with a quick incisor. The entire sky was tinged with pink, and the street lamps and shop sign bulbs glowed with a kind of unearthly light in the gathering dusk. The first lilacs were being hawked by an anemic but pretty young girl. Rather fittingly, the cafe phonograph was singing the flower aria from Faust. A tall, middle-aged lady in a charcoal tailor-made suit, heavily, yet not ungracefully, swinging her hips, made her way among the sidewalk tables. There was no vacant one. Finally, she put one hand in a glossy black glove upon the back of the empty chair opposite Erwin. "May I?" queried her unsmiling eyes from under the short veil of her velvet hat. "Yes, certainly," answered Erwin, slightly rising and ducking. He was not awed by such solid-built women with thickly powdered, somewhat masculine jowls. Down onto the table, with a resolute thud, went her oversized handbag. She ordered a cup of coffee and a wedge of apple tart. Her deep voice was somewhat hoarse, but pleasant. The vast sky, suffused with dull rose, grew darker. A tram screeched by, inundating the asphalt with the radiant tears of its lights. The short-skirted beauties walked by. Erwin's glance followed them. I want this one, he thought, noticing his nether lip. And that one too. I think it could be arranged, said his vis-à-vis in the same calm, husky tones in which she had addressed the waiter. Erwin almost fell off his chair. The lady looked intently at him as she pulled off one glove to tackle her coffee. Her made-up eyes shone cold and hard, like showy false jewels. Dark pouches swelled under them, and, what seldom occurs in the case of women, even elderly women, hairs grew out of her feline-shaped nostrils. The shed glove revealed a big wrinkled hand with long, convex, beautiful fingernails. Don't be surprised, she said with a wry smile. She muffled a yawn and added, in point of fact, I am the devil. Shy, naive Erwin took this to be a figure of speech, but the lady, lowering her voice, continued as follows. Those who imagine me with horns and a thick tail are greatly mistaken. Only once did I appear in that shape to some Byzantine imbecile, and I really don't know why it was such a damned success. I am born 3 or 4 times every 2 centuries. In the 1870s, some 50 years ago, I was buried, with picturesque honours and a great shedding of blood, on a hill above a cluster of African villages of which I had been ruler. My term there was a rest after more stringent incarnations. Now I am a German-born woman whose last husband, I had, I think, 3 in all, was of French extraction, a Professor Monde. In recent years I have driven several young men to suicide, caused a well-known artist to copy and multiply the picture of the Westminster Abbey on the pound note, incited a virtuous family man, but there is really nothing to brag about. This has been a pretty banal avatar, and I am fed up with it. She gobbled up her slice of tart, and Erwin, mumbling something, reached for his hat, which had fallen under the table. No, don't go yet, said Frau Monde, simultaneously beckoning the waiter. I am offering you something. I am offering you a harem, and if you are still skeptical of my power, see that old gentleman in their tortoise-shell glasses crossing the street? Let's have him hit by a train. Erwin, blinking, turned streetward. As the old man reached the tracks, he took out his handkerchief and was about to sneeze into it. At the same time,